My name is Matthew Ashtown, Green Knight of the Dreamwork, and I'm going to be joined here momentarily by Rosy Aronson, and we are the themes of trust in relation to the Dreamwork. And there she is. Oh
Oh my
boy,
God, Matthew.
tricksters!
Again.
Well, considering creature really surprised, like this is what happens when you invite elephants into the room. Like literally, you'll see what we mean in a few minutes. So
Yes.
um,
Yes.
it looks like everybody came back to join us. So I'm really grateful.
Oh,
So we won't keep you waiting any longer, folks. You're here for the Long Arc of Trust with Rosy Aronson and Matthew Ashdown. And we're going to be exploring some Dreamark wisdom together. We're going to have some fun invitations, and we'll be contemplating a few themes that arise when we look at this theme of trust. So, Rosy, do you want to kick
yes.
us off today?
Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to. And thank you, Matthew, for handling that so graciously. I think if I were in your position, I would be totally panicking.
Uh,
you're so calm about it.
On the outside, maybe.
You look like you're trusting with the long arc.
I knew it was work
Okay.
eventually. I just didn't know how long it would take.
Exactly. Oh my God, it's so crazy. Anyway, so as everybody knows, we will be continuing intentionally and unintentionally with the theme of tricksters. And for those of you who were not here last month and who aren't so familiar with the dream arc, I imagine most of you are, but there are 12 groupings of animals that are connected to overarching archetypal themes like the warriors and the hunters and the leapers and the unifiers and the messengers. And this time we're just going to keep our exploration going around the tricksters. And last time we went to the DreamArc's Tricksters Oracle and we drew 3 of them for the sake of everybody. And we all gleaned a lot of wisdom from the ladybug, right? And the fox and the magpie. But this time we're going to do something even more trickstery, which is to talk about this long arc of trust, which at first hearing may not feel or sound very trickstery or trickstery at all. But it will totally be trickstery, because if tricksters ask us to do anything, it's to trust in what life brings us, even when it's not necessarily what we had in mind. So we have a feeling that our exploration is going to give us what we need at this time, if not necessarily what we expect. And how about we start with the question for those of you who are here and who came back despite the trickstery technical difficulties, or who might be joining us sometime in the future. And we'd like you to start thinking about your relationship to trust. And for now, just focus more on the places where you actually experience trust as easier than maybe in other places. So, for example, like where or in relation to what or with whom does trust actually come easier than not? So maybe, for example, you have an easier time trusting yourself than you do other people, right? Or you trust animals more easily than you trust humans. Or maybe you really trust in hard work, in effort, but you have a harder time trusting in miracles or effortless grace. Would you say that you trust in God or in the universe or in nature or evolution or the divine masculine or the divine feminine or in science or in life itself, right? You're getting the sense of this. And if you feel comfortable, just share a few words in the comments about what's emerging for you, whatever it is, knowing that this, of course, as always, is a deeper contemplation that can take time to really unfold. And while you're all percolating, I'll keep talking, and you too, Matthew, just keep percolating on this. And first, I want to share that this Insta Live feels very special to me because it's the last time I'll be doing one of these together with Matthew while I'm still working officially at the Gene Keys. And even though I'll always be working for and through the Gene Keys transmission, this does mark like the closing of a chapter and the turning of a page. And in many ways, it's the perfect moment for me to reflect together with Matthew on what it really means to walk the long arc of trust, as we move from poverty to synergy, or from the illusion of separation to a genuine experience of connection, no matter what things may look like on the surface. So for me, Staying connected to the long arc of trust is all about continuing to show up for life and for love and for each other, even when we don't necessarily see the immediate fruits of our labor. Even when things seem to be taking way, 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 way longer than we ever hoped that they would, right? Even when the road is dark and long and lonely. So we might as well be honest, right? And admit that for a lot of us humans, trust does not always come so easy. For example, it could be really hard to trust, and it can feel even like impossible to trust when you're grieving, right? Like grief is just one of those human experiences that will not move according to your desired timeline. And there are losses that I've experienced and shared about over the past few years where I wanted so badly to be done with the grieving, just to be over it and through it and on the other side. But grief has its own rhythm. And like we talked about in the live Insta that we called Color Your Closure. I don't know if you saw that one, where we really explored the art of endings and we received parrot medicine. Some things in life cannot be rushed. So, like looking back just on a more personal level, I can see that there have been many times when I found it hard to trust in the timeline and the trajectory, even of the dream arc, right? There have been many moments, like since Richard first invited me to partner with him in 2015, when I and my teammates, including Richard, who had to juggle like so many competing needs and priorities, have felt confused and frustrated and powerless and really impatient. And there have been so many visions and fabulous ideas and deep intentions and potential innovations for the dream arc that one or more of us have held in our hearts at different times, all of which like didn't land or didn't fit into the bigger picture, or we just weren't able to prioritize them or fund those ideas at that time or in the way that we hoped that we could, like even the Oracle box set, right? Which I know many of you are waiting for, like we've been. So all of us at the Gene Keys have wanted this publishing project, for example, to just move so much faster than it has. But if I've learned anything over these past years, this project and the Dream Arc in general is not a product, right? It's not even a path. It's like this living creature, right? With its own timing and its own destiny. And while I've been able to kind of nurture and support its growth to the best of my ability, determining the speed and scope of its blossoming has been way, way, way beyond my individual scope, which makes sense, right? It's always been meant to be held and nurtured by a village, and villages have their own timing. It's not one person that's like determining the whole thing. And then I don't know about you, but there are those creative projects that never even see the light of day, right? They sit quietly on our shelves or in the corner of our creative minds year after year. Just last week, for example, I dreamed that I was in the ocean having this deep conversation with something that was kind of like half elephant and half sea lion. And we were talking about this children's tale about this family of seven seals, which I started writing back in 1992 and only like published the prelude to. And I asked this creature, I'm like, will I ever return to this writing project? Right? Will this tale ever be completed? And actually, I got a relatively reassuring response in the dream from this giant sea creature, who gave me like this big, kind of wet, smooth hug and then let me rest my little hand in his giant flipper. But I wasn't given a timeline, right? Just an invitation to trust. Yeah. So for me, like trust always shows up in my relationship with myself. And I get so impatient with my body, with my racing and critical mind, with my struggles with organization and discipline, which I've talked about in the past in dream arc settings. How many times I've asked myself, when am I going to stop being so hard on myself? Which is kind of a funny, funny thing. What am I going to, I'm going to beat myself up for beating myself up. Or what am I going to stop caring what other people think about me and how they perceive me? I mean, my God, like I'm about to turn 58. You think by now I'd have a handle on these things, or when is my body going to be strong and free? And when am I going to embrace my body exactly the way it is? Or when will I finally overcome this discomfort with public speaking, right? Or when am I going to figure out how to offer my work in a way that consistently inspires people, or how to balance my checkbooks or make a reliable, consistent living, right? There's just all kind of poverty for us to climb out of, or a sense of deficit, right? And sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's emotional, energetic, spiritual, that feeling like we should be further along by now, in our healing and our path and our ability to embody who we know we truly are or what we're really capable of if we can just get out of our own way. And then, there's the impatience that isn't just personal, right? I mean, I bet many of you can relate to this. I mean, how challenging is it to be patient with humanity right now? Like, how can it be that we're still going to war? How is it, that we're still killing each other? That we're still falling for the same manipulative traps that keep us thinking that we're separate or that some of us are better than others, more human than others, right? And how is it possible that we can create a smartphone and build a rocket, but we still haven't figured out how to feed each other? How to grow food in ways that are healthy for the earth? How are we still managing to extract and oppress and divide and conquer? So sometimes when I hear people say, or even when I hear myself say, just trust the process, all is perfect, I just want to vomit. Like, I just want to, and of course, the deepest part of my being knows how sacred and perfect all of life is, right? For even the darkest shadows contain the gifts and bring out our gifts. And in the end, life here on school earth is but a dream. And yet there's another part, right? A very real part that just aches, you know, and how far we humans seem to have strayed from our remembering, you know. So, let's just consider these explorations we're having and just let me ask another question while I'm crying. But where would you say in your life are you struggling with trust? You know, what's taking longer than you thought or hoped that it would in your heart, in your body, in your work, in the world? And you're welcome to share in the chat or just hold this question quietly as I bring the question to you, Matthew. How would you say your current state of trust is doing these days? What's feeling easy to trust? Where has trust been feeling more challenging to embody? And is there something that's taken longer than you want it to? I know you've got creative projects, for example, that you've been incubating and working on behind the scenes for years. You've certainly walked with me in the dream arc through its long arc of becoming. So you might have something you might want to share there. And I'd also be curious to know how, you experience trust or impatience in your body. I'm just throwing out things I'd be interested in, or like whether there's a time when something moved really, really, really slowly and you wish it had gone faster, but looking back now, you're grateful that it took the time that it took. Like there was some divine timing at work. So anyway, these are just some questions for you. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosie. So much in there. And I just want to, there's something here from Ineffable Crux. There's a paradox in having absolute trust in the ways of the world and not having that same level of trust in myself. And that is something, that is something I can resonate with and something that I've experienced in my life for sure and continue to. And, to be able to cultivate this deep sense of trust. So I think it does start with, like you said, when somebody says, just trust, just trust. And then what does that cause? Because it's a, it's like, can we actually be okay with not that we don't trust? To recognize that I am not less than because I'm not trusting in this moment. I am deepening into trust because there are many areas of my life where I trust so deeply. And it's the same too with patience. It's a lot, I've always considered myself a patient person, but how patient? Like, am I patient enough to wait a lifetime for the thing that is seemingly wanting to come through the creative endeavors? Because yeah, there are creative endeavors that have been seemingly held in my being for some time, and it's just being able to allow for that. And yeah, working with the dream arc, I mean, I can feel that the dream arc has this trust in itself, in its own timing. And at the same time being able to trust that for myself fully and just to witness that and to trust in the process and all that's unfolding and the coughing, trust in the pause. I'm just going to take a pause, a tea pause.
I'll take one too.
Yeah. And I mean, the tea is such a great example, right? Just being able to, um, to steep this tea, allowing the flavors to come through. It's like if I just when I first came to Canada and people would make me tea, they duck the tea bag and they take it out, and I was like, "Where's the steeping? Where's the?" It was just and you don't get all the flavors. So I think of all the flavor that we get when we allow for these processes to unravel in their own time. I've got a little baby Gary oak tree here, just over there somewhere, and I've had it for about a year or so. Somebody gave it to me a year ago, and it hasn't grown much, but I'm watering it every day, and I trust that that's going to grow one day to be a full oak tree. And yet, where in my life am I not trusting in some of these other things, these other seeds that I'm planting? And can I water them and trust in their growth? And the same too with humanity. Like we're talking, somebody's saying here, actually, Angelique is saying, I trust I need to say something about the inhumanity. I trust we need to remind people we are siblings, and that, to foster that trust between one another, and to be able to acknowledge and say, yeah, there's still this place of distrust within me in other humans. There's definitely something that wants to come up for me today around this. Excuse me. And, just in a couple of days' time, there's a group of us are going to be gathering in Vancouver, British Columbia, to do to have a Gene Keys gathering, and we're going to be sharing the wisdom of the Dreamwork there as well. And just coming together and joining with other people, can I trust that I'm going to be received with kindness when in so many other places I felt rejected or have experienced that wounding or feeling outcast or whatever it is? And I know this of when we went to London back in November of last year, that there is that invitation into trusting there and allowing myself to be surprised. So to be able to trust in the unknown. And again, I trust in the unknown, but it's also being honest with where am I not trusting in the unknown? Like if I can feel that constriction inside of me, can I trust, trust in that? Can I trust in the constriction? Can I trust in the pain? Can I trust in this is remind me of a verse that it's not a verse, but it's the way Richard speaks it. It comes across as a verse where it's like, trust it all, and there is that sort of feminine place of deep trust in it all. And there's still, it comes back to this, yeah, where am I deepening into trust? Where's my trust edge today? And so I really see it as that long arc of trust, as you said, and as we are talking about here today. And, I've actually watched a show last night. Some of you might have seen it. It's called The Shark Whisperer. And I actually sent this to you, Rosie. I sent you the trailer. But it's a perfect example of, it's kind of a trickster medicine as well, because here this woman's getting into the water with these sharks, and she's just over her lifetime built a relationship with sharks. And it's been a slow and steady building of trust. So much so that, she's really an advocate for sharks to this day. And that people have seen it as this monster. If we think of the movie Jaws and just how that, shifted and changed things so much so that, like, I'm talking with Nicole about that this irrational fear that many of us had, that we go to a swimming pool, which is closed off, and we still fear that there's a shark in there, right? And that these are monsters. And she has said, she's coming at it from this place of building trust with these, a trusting relationship with these creatures. And there's one in particular there called Roxy that she builds trust with over time. And at the end of it, I'm like looking in Roxy's eyes as she's swimming, like, Dad, you're so cute, And it was like, it's like, wow, thank you. Her name's Ocean Ramsey. Thank you, Ocean, for helping us build our trust again, even in the creatures that we don't trust. The snakes, the spiders, those other ones that are associated with our fears that we project our fears onto. And so it was just this beautiful witness to that. And there might, when we share a bit later, it's also relevant to some more of what we're sharing later. But just this, that these creatures that we don't trust in the world, what are they showing us to trust inside of ourselves? And how can we can build trust with sharks, what else can we build trust with? We're in the time of the rising of AI, and it's rising no matter what, you know, how much resistance we might have to it. It's got its place in our world. And so how do we harmonize our relationship with that? And so many areas where it's like, yeah, I can feel where there's that lack of trust in politics, lack of trust in government, lack of trust in media, lack of trust in science, lack of trust in, and then to be able to even find those places within each of those where there is even a fragment of trust that can be found. And it's like to build up that case, build up the evidence for things that can be trusted. So that's a little bit of what's popping up for me this morning as we're talking.
Wow. Thank you, Matthew, as always. Oh, it made me think about becoming trustworthy. What does that mean to be trustworthy? And I find myself like and I've like over the past few years, I have really experienced some crises in trust around relationships that I've had, collaborators that I've worked with. And it's really kind of forced me to come back and say, okay, where have I abandoned myself? Like, where have I not actually trusted my intuition or trusted myself? Where am I not being a trustworthy collaborator? And I just wanted to bring that in as well as like a contemplation for all of us.
Yeah,
What that means
yeah,
to be trustworthy. What does that mean to be
it's
trustworthy?
yeah,
In different
exactly.
contexts. Yeah, it's a really good
Yeah.
question to sit with. And then
And
I
how
wanted
do
to
we
just, yeah, yeah.
and how do we give trust to others? One of the things that the Gene Keys has helped me really reflect on and contemplate is that um, so often we talk about people needing to earn our trust. They've got to
Mm,
earn my trust.
mm,
But what if no matter what they did, it wasn't enough for us to consider it trustworthy, right? And yet what happens if we give people trust? And, I've seen that in the way that you have led the Dreamwork and our teams is like you've given trust to me and to others throughout this. You gave us trust. We didn't have to earn that trust. And that empowered us in our relationship with trust. So that to me is something that I'm really thinking of too, because this trustworthy piece I always had this strong need to be trustworthy. And it seems the more I needed to be trustworthy, the less trustworthy I seemed to be. And it's like, as that need to, as I've healed that wounding within, it's like that need to be trustworthy isn't so, there's not so much neediness in there. And I'm finding there is more of a natural trust. Yeah.
yeah. No, thank you, Matthew. That's so good. It's funny. I keep getting a phone call from my daughter, who's who's having a little bit of a
Oh, your sound just disappeared.
hard time. I need to just maybe get back to her for a second to give her a little message. But I actually was inspired when you were talking about continuing to feed the oak tree to keep,
Yeah.
and trusting that it will grow and become the full oak. And I was just connected with my daughter, whose purpose animal is the owl. So her purpose is
Mm.
about cultivating wisdom over time, but wisdom isn't cultivated overnight, right? That's the one thing you can never get too old in the profession. If you have a profession that's about wisdom, you're never going to get too old for the collective. And then I received, okay, so I have these wonderful Italian translators who are working on the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. And one of them, Maria Teresa, and her husband had this little tiny owl that lost its parents in its nest, and so they've been feeding and nurturing this little owlet into life. And that is my daughter's purpose animal, is the owl, right? So,
Hmm.
and I was just thinking, oh, the owl is so cute, like so cute and so lovable and so vulnerable. Who would ever like be hard on that owl? Like it just needs kindness and love and little bits of food and patience, and it will of course become the great big wise owl. But it's not going to happen overnight. And to what extent do we all have like these little wise owlets inside of us that just need compassionate tending, that just need us to nurture and trust that the wings will spread eventually. Okay,
And
so
that's, I'm
I
just going to say quickly.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll just speak quickly if you need to.
it's good when I just send a message to my yeah, go ahead, talking, I'm listening to you.
Trusting in timing. Well, it's funny you mentioned the owls because I was witnessing a few weeks ago. There was some. I was at my in-laws visiting my in-laws, and there were some owls in the tree there. It was a family of owls. So there was a mother, and I think three kids were up there. And I just think of that too, like the mother waiting there patiently and watching them and being with them and coming back to them, and like there was no rush for her to kick them out, right? It was she trusts in the timing. She's paying attention to their rhythms and their behaviors, and she'll have this innate knowing of when, okay, now it's time. Because now they've disappeared. They've all they've set off from that nest. They're no longer in that nest. So who knows where they are now. But I love that too, is that because owl is something that is definitely becoming, it's showing up a lot in the work that I'm doing and in people that I'm meeting because there's so much that is unknown at this time. And there's so much that is emerging from the void. And the owl is the one that could fly and see in the darkness. And so, the amount of patience and trust that it has to be able to do that. And yeah, so the wise old owl. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So let's take our conversation about trust and bring in two particular dream arc allies in addition to the owl. And interestingly, these are not tricksters, at least not according to the Dreamwork Animal Codex, but very much like tricksters. They bring something unexpected, yet very relevant to what we've been exploring so far. So these animals showed up serendipitously for me and Matthew when we were talking about what we might want to share today. And they're both very powerful unifiers, the elephant and the buffalo. And in each their own way, they're here to remind us how to be in right relationship with time and with the earth and with our ancestors. And given everything happening in our world right now, they embody totally the kind of medicine and so many of us need, not just to survive these times, but to transform them. So I thought we could start with the elephant and then I'll go on to the buffalo and then we'll hear more from Matthew and everybody else. Okay. So in the Dreamwork Animal Codex that was written by Richard, of course, the elephant represents the life key of deep patience. And if you're into the gene keys, it's connected to the fifth gene key. And now I'm just going to read directly from, I might pull up my notes here, from the Codex to see what the elephant has to offer us in terms of guidance. Okay, here we go. I am elephant. Your challenge right now is to learn deep patience. Understand that patience is not only about waiting, it's deeper than this. It's about trust. All things are resolved in their own way and in their own timing. Can you wait as though eternity itself lay before you? Can you wait beyond a single lifetime? This is deep patience. It requires a deep vision of life beyond death, of a marvelous continuity of consciousness that lies beyond the grasp of most humans. Patience does not mean that you do not act. If you need to act, then you must act and act with passion and conviction, but let your action flow from deep patience and calm. Be with your own people. Be among your tribe, your soul family. Life can be taken at a leisurely, contemplative pace. This is what you need now more than anything else. And then finally, he writes, we elephants also are known for the depth of our emotion. In some ways, we're repositories for the sadness of the world. When our kin pass over into the other world, we mourn them deeply and we hold a powerful collective memory of our ancestors. Take some time to tune into your own ancestors and the many sacrifices they made in order for you to be here. Welcome any melancholy or sadness that wells up inside you. Knowing and embracing sadness is the key to also feeling joy. So do not fear these feelings. Let them come and let them move through. We release them in order that future generations will not need to carry them. So the elephant carries memory and wisdom and emotion, and it moves slowly, not because it's lazy, but because it's reverent. It teaches us that an act of deep listening and of trust in life's larger rhythms, that long arc we're talking about. And when we bring that kind of patience into our relationships, and we can just stop trying to fix or rush or run to the rescue or force a solution, which is a big one for me, we can really start to be present enough to actually love each other through the long process of becoming and evolving and dying and being reborn. So soon I'm going to ask you to share more, Matthew, but I thought I'm just going to go straight into the buffalo, who offers a different kind of, but a connected kind of teaching, which is about synergy. And then we'll bring you back in. Is that okay with you?
Yep. Sounds good
Yep.
to me. And I just want to let Angelique know she's asking, where did you read this from? So this is from the animal codex inside of the Dreamwork course, which one day will become a Dreamwork Oracle deck as well, as we were mentioning, but currently it exists within there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next one that came up for us was the buffalo, and it's connected to the life key of ancestral synergy, as well as the 45th gene key. And here's a bit of guidance from Richard from the Dreamwork Animal Codex from the mouth of the buffalo. Okay, so here we go. I am buffalo. Steeped in mythic lore, I return to the earth in successive cycles to remind all humans of the power of gathering together in the name of the sacred. I stand on the threshold of your dream life and your waking life, offering my bones as your tools to help you listen to the circles of your ancestors. There are times in your life when you cannot solve your problems alone. Now is such a time for you. Seek out a wise one in your world, and when you find them, humbly lay your suffering at their feet. Hold back nothing and hide nothing. Listen to the guidance of the wise and chew it over. Smoke it in your sacred pipe for a while, and soon in your dreams the answer will come to you. Many of your people around the world have found their way to truth through my sacrifice. I even give my youngest and purest daughter, the white buffalo calf, to your world. She comes to remind you of the great cycles of change. When you view your tiny life against such a backdrop, you will find deeper levels of relaxation. All is well in the world at all times. And then finally, I am a great unifier. My message and the teaching of my pure daughter is to always honor the earth and all creatures and fellow beings, even the sharks. Consider holding a great gathering in your life. Bring together those whom you love and let them feast together in synergy. Honor your human family and let go of any pains of your past. Life provides everything you need. For when we all run together across the wide open plains of time and space, nothing can stop us in our sacred task. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. So essentially the buffalo's just letting us know that there are times when we just can't solve our problems on our own. And this is one of those times. I'm really taking that in, and it also asks us to stop hiding and to stop editing ourselves, right? And instead to just step fully into the circle of our relations and reach out for support and counsel from the elders around us, from our communities, our friends, our family, from our ancestors. And in a world like the one we're living in, where so many of us are just starving for genuine connection, like the buffalo's invitation is radical. So Matthew, I just would love to hear anything that came up for you in relation to the elephant and the buffalo, the medicine of patience and synergy. Maybe there's been a time in your life when patience or synergy or just trusting in a deeper rhythm or reaching out for wise guidance maybe had a trickstery effect and completely or maybe unexpectedly changed the outcome of something that was really important to you. Or maybe you've just witnessed an inspiring situation where people were able to come together and go beyond their differences in order to solve a problem, or just anything else you feel inspired to share.
So have we got an hour and a half? Because I could I could answer all those questions, but that'll test. There you go. No rush. That'll test people's patience for sure. That's funny because the first thing, even before you'd read the buffalo, and you were still reading The Elephant, I suddenly felt my grandparents coming close, who are both wise old owls, which is interesting. They were owls to me. But I remembered that one of the things that got passed on to me when they passed, when my grandmother passed, was an elephant. And it's here in my house. It's on my altar downstairs. And so this elephant has been with me, and one of these pieces that I love from the teaching of the elephant and elsewhere where we find this invitation into deep trust is this: can I trust in, the eternal nature of my being? Can I trust that even if this is beyond this lifetime, when we see, our visions flowering in this world, I think of all the people who've planted seeds in other lifetimes, or in other times rather. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. That seed was planted, many years ago, and it's still in its unraveling in this time, and who knows if he's back and enjoying his life in a different way that way. But just that eternal trust, that deep trust. Because I got patience in my day to day. I can have patience with technology, which was a learned thing too. I didn't always. I had to recognize where I was impatient. And so elephant medicine, I think, is really powerful in this way. And I want to share a story too, briefly, of the bliss of patience, where my wife and I had been looking for a home to live in for 3 years, and we had not found anything that matched our needs. And also, if we did find something, there would be like 10 other people. So talk about like the lack of synergy. It'd be 10 people competing for the one home. And and so it was kind of getting frustrating for both of us in a way. And it was really interesting timing when the Dreamwork course, I'd been working with the creatures of the Dreamwork, in different, just as they came to me through the little codex that we had, but nothing in terms of the deep dive into the Dreamwork. So the week that the Dreamwork came out and I worked with that was the same week that my wife went to an event in Colorado, or Sedona, sorry, Sedona, Arizona. And she had brought with her this intention that we find a home, that we find a place to live that we could call our own. And at the beginning, she was sharing it, and she was feeling this, like, it's been 3 years already, and like it should be happening by now. It should have happened by now. Both of us were like that. And then talking to her over this week, I just felt this softening in her, especially in this, and just a trust. And on the last day of her retreat there, I was talking to her, and I'd happened to be dealing with some issues with our dogs at that time. So I was like a little frazzled, but she was just in this. I was like, wow, you sound really, just relaxed right now. And she said, yeah, I'm in the bliss of patience. And she said, my teacher said to me, what if it's another 10 years before I find that home? And she made her really look at, like, what if you did have to wait? Like, you know, what's this idea that we think that we're in control of that outcome, right? And so she'd found this bliss of patience. And the irony of it was, within a week, the house that we now live in popped up in our awareness. And so it's almost like this way of, if I can settle into that bliss of patience when I'm not attached to the time, and can totally trust in the timing, things might seem to happen in an instant. Now that doesn't, you can't fake that. It has to be a genuine, like, okay, yeah, I'm in bliss of patience now. It's like, so, no, it's like, you have to be genuinely, yeah, right. Convincing ourselves that we're patient. We know how we feel in our body when we are that patient. And the funny thing was that at that time, my wife was painting an elephant. And so she paints these things quite often. She'll ask me after the fact, and I never tell her. I want her to have her journey with the creature. And then she'll ask me, so what's this one about, in the dream arc? And it's always so relevant. And the fifth gene key, which is this one about patience, is actually her creativity sphere in the star pearl. So it's like the 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 creative process has been a way for her to deepen into that trust and patience, learning how to become a better artist. And all about that. Like, for herself, becoming more trusting of what she's creating. And then with the buffalo, funny story actually, couple of years ago, I was back in England, and my parents said we're going to go to this little nature sanctuary. And when we got there, it turns out there were these two water buffaloes from South Africa that were just being there, that were there walking around this little sanctuary. The only animals in the whole sanctuary. And I had to chuckle because we had just moved into, and this answers somebody's question earlier, we had just moved into the pulse, which means the sun was in the 45th gene key for 6 days. And so the 45th gene key is the buffalo. And so it's like, I don't always see buffalo, but when I do, it's usually during the pulse of the 45th gene key. And just things like that help to deepen that trust in the magic of the dream arc, because I can see where people don't necessarily trust coming into the dream arc, or it's a process of deepening into that trust, and that's the thing. It's a journey into deeper trust. And you and I have been journeying with this for such a time. We've been shown again and again the forefront, the edges of trust, and that a lot of it has come through the patience. When we're talking about synergy, I've been a solopreneur for a long time before I came into the Gene Key. So if I wanted something done today, I did it. And when we're working in a team, like there's 45 people in the Gene Keys team. And when we're working with all these people, there's processes, and there's respecting other people's times and what's going on for them, and allowing for that in order for that synergy to happen. And even when it seems like things are late, they're never really late. It's just our perception of it. And of course, one of my favorite sayings, my mentor Gandalf, that would say, a wizard is never late. A wizard arrives precisely when he means to. And so it is this deeper invitation into trust that comes with, with working in synergy with others. And I think of this in this journey of this shark whisperer too, because, the shadow of the 45th gene key is dominance. And so because people are scared of sharks, they want to dominate, and they want to hunt, and they want to kill. And so this woman, she was working with, let's save the sharks. Let's put in, she wanted to pioneer some things that would limit the amount of sharks that could be killed in particular ways, especially around Hawaii. And it was a very slow process for her. And she got a lot of no's along the way, and she tried different things out, but all of that was part of her evolutionary journey in her being and deepening. So it was like, I was seeing this kind of continuation between the building of the trust with the sharks, but also then turning that in to build trust with the humans, right? And the humans in this element who were seeking to dominate. But in the end, what happened, there was enough people coming together that brought this synergy, brought about the result that she'd always hoped for. But it took time. It took deep patience. She went through deep despair and depression, and for all the fears that she was swimming with sharks, but there were other fears that she had in interacting with humanity. And so that goes back to what you were sharing at the very beginning there. And for me, myself, I think one of the greatest experiences of synergy was being part of a group of people that were protecting our lake that we lived on at the time from it was like a toxic soil dump above the lake that was leaching chemicals into the lake. And we had 60 people that came together, and each person took on a different role. And part of this synergy is knowing what role we play. Not try to fit ourselves into another role, but just looking at what our strengths are, what our gifts are, where we do well. And so there was naturally these groups, these different teams, all playing little parts, and they all came into the whole. And what happened, it was this focus on, we didn't want to dominate the bad guys, as some would call it. They're the bad guys. And it's like, I would never look at it as the bad guys, because I could see myself in them too. It was like, I could see engineers who had been discarded their relationship with nature because of what they learned in engineering, that this is just inert matter. So I could see myself in them having been raised in that world too. And so there was empathy there, but wasn't about getting rid of anybody or dominating anybody. It was together, all of us were focused on the lake, the clean future of our lake. And so as I think of the work of the buffalo and the connecting with our ancestors, it's like the wisdom of the ancestors coming through, but also we are the ancestors of the future generations. And that cycle and that loop, it's like an infinity loop I'm seeing as I'm sharing this, is this call to synergy, to working together. And there's still slow pieces of that puzzle, but it set a precedent, that particular case, because of the way we handled it and approached it and worked in the laws. It was a slow process, but it set a precedent across Canada. So now when there's other lakes that are in risk of this, they can cite this particular case. And so it's slow moving. It requires deep patience. But I know that our little group of people made a difference in that way. So, yay to the buffalo. And the last thing I wanted to say is when we look at the fifth gene key of patience, that's the one that governs the stability sphere that people are working with in the star pearl sequence in gene keys, which is based upon Saturn. And interestingly, at the very beginning, you mentioned you're 58. So that means your second Saturn return is actually, so it's all those lessons where you think, oh yeah, I should have got this by now. Why am I'm this, and I'm still doing this. And then the 45 is the which is the buffalo, is the one that sort of holds space for the pearl sphere at the center, right? So it's like if anybody's working with the star pearl, they might add the elephant and the buffalo to their imagery and workings with it, because that deep patience, that's the deep patience of synergy, like the two creatures together, um, and I'm imagining them walking the plains together. The plains of Africa, you've got the buffalo walking amongst the elephant, and that patience through synergy, or synergy through patience.
Oh my God. Wow, I bow to you, Matthew. That was beautiful.
That was one of those where you got me set off. You set me off.
Good,
So.
Matthew. One thing that came to me as I was listening to you, and I hope that I could even articulate it, but that trust has so much to do with developing a relationship with the unseen. And I was thinking about like the owl that can look through the dark. And I was thinking about the unseen of time, right? Like we can't see our ancestors. We can't see the people who come into the future, but trusting that we're a part of these long, long lines where there's all this evolution and cycles and spirals happening through us. And then I was thinking about the unseen, like, we think about, we can see like, 7 colors of the rainbow, but they're actually like this enormous spectrum of things that we don't see. Or maybe we're tuned into the one radio channel of this dimension, but there are multiple dimensions happening simultaneously. Like I probably have like angels and ancestors all around me right now, and everybody listening to and so that's the other piece, like what you were talking about in terms of, when we're in a manifestation mode, or we have an expectation or a wish, or we're solopreneurs or whatever, we have this idea that we're individuals trying to create something. We're not seeing the cosmic life web that we're a part of that is co-creating with us, right? It's not just the woman developing a relationship with a trusting relationship with the shark. The shark is also having to go according to its own timing to cultivate a trusting relationship with her. And so anytime we think, oh, I want to find my next new lover, like we're not thinking of all the little things that have to happen in his or her life or their life, and in that world, part of the world they're living in, and the cafe they have to go into to see that flyer that brings them to that birthday party that connects them to the person who's the friend of my cousin, like there's the whole life web that we have to trust that is conspiring to bring our stream forward, right? So I wanted to just honor that, like in terms of like there's so much brilliance at work, working for
Hmm.
the benefit of all of our dreams. And we all carry just a piece of the dream. Like we get this little peek into what it is that the role we're meant to play in the co-creation of something that must be created through a synergy or through a synarchy. And so I just wanted to add that. And I know that, our time is coming to an end. So before we come to a close, is it, I thought I'd share just a little bit about how elephant and buffalo are walking with me personally.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
please do. Yeah.
more fully into this next chapter where I'm going to be feeding this creative and collaborative dream that's all about unifying, which is called the Universal Love Curriculum. And some of you have probably heard about it already because I'm talking about it all the time these days. But in case you haven't, it's a curriculum that isn't really like your typical curriculum. It's a living, breathing, community nurturing offering that's inspired by the dream arc and the gene keys. It's designed to teach the whole child, not just the memorizing mind, and it brings learning into the body. It honors the spirit, the heart through relationship with ourselves, with others, with animals, the earth, with the greater community, with our elders, the ancestors. And it's not, necessarily about improving test scores. Doesn't mean it won't, but that's not really like the essence of what
Hmm.
it's about. It's really about cultivating soul literacy and empowering a creative global village of teachers and parents and facilitators and artists and indigenous wisdom keepers and communities that are going to bring the curriculum to life in their own unique, locally inspired ways. And personally, I've been stewarding this curriculum for some years now. But some of our Ugandan collaborators, like Samson Turinawe, for those of you who've had the pleasure of meeting him, have been, my co-creative partner for nearly a decade on other humanitarian projects. And our core team has evolved and will continue to evolve over time. Matthew's a big part of that, just as our vision has. But we've stayed committed to planting the kinds of love infused seeds that have the potential to grow strong enough and deep enough roots, like that oak tree, Matthew, to serve many generations into the future, where we are the ancestors in relationship to that. And I love that whole concept. Like, oh my God, I'm an ancestor. Maybe out in this, but like it dawned on me in a whole new way when you said that. And, our process has been slow. It's asking everything of us, including this patience and trust and communal synergy that we've been looking at today. But as our project continues to grow, I just want to stay connected with any of you who feel, drawn to it, to share updates, invite your engagement, or just your good to open doors for collaboration in the months and years to come. So if anything in your heart or intuition is like resonating, there will always be a place for you to participate and contribute. So if you're a teacher, an artist, a wisdom keeper, storyteller, donor, dreamer, somebody who just cares about the future of our children, just know you're very welcome. And that's really all I wanted to say there. I don't know if there's anything you want to share, Matthew, before I offer a closing invitation for people.
No, the universal love curriculum is a powerful vision. I'm glad you're talking about it all the time now because it is your passion. It is what's driving you in. Yeah, yeah, exactly. You've got people listening and you're talking about it. It's to be able to we always hear in the Gene Keys team, we're asked, is there people bringing this towards kids and with the Gene Keys and the Dream Arc is such an amazing way. And Richard has shared this on multiple occasions too. Like, rather than sending kids to the Gene Keys, send them to the Dream Arc because they'll recognize the animals. They'll have fun with these animals. I mean, my 2-year-old niece isn't looking at books of numbers. She's got all kinds of animals strewn out on her floor at home, right? All my 3 nieces. And so, the dream arc and what you're doing with the ULC is that you've taken this time to steward this and to hold the vision. And Marilee's Rosie's sister has been developing the curriculum. And so there's so much in place there to support people and it's going to save a lot of other people who are having to do that same kind of work to create that foundation. So you've really created a foundation here and it's really exciting. I'm looking forward for us continuing to share it. And I know Richard really wants to keep supporting it as much as Gene Keys can. And the way we know we can is through getting to talk about it here in the Gazelle newsletter and elsewhere. So, trust that there we go. Trust that we are going to keep talking about the ULC, whether Rosie's here or not, because yeah, we're very much connected to it. So definitely reach out, connect to Rosie and the team around that, because all gifts are welcome there for sure.
Thank you, Matthew. So, shall I extend an invitation?
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here's one that's inspired by the unifier duo, the elephant and the buffalo. And the first part of the invitation is, and it's not something you're going to do right now. It's something that you can do in the coming days or weeks or whatever, which is just to gather together, like with either one person or maybe a small group of people or a larger group of people, but people that you trust, like kindred spirits. And ideally, you'll gather in person, but if that's not possible, then gather on Zoom. It doesn't matter. What matters most is that you come together with an intention, which is just to sit in each other's presence and share a story of trust or of doubt or both. Or maybe even just a question that you're holding right now about in your life, and do your best to share with an open heart and listen with an open heart. Like there's no need to solve anybody's problems, right? Or give advice, because we're in the field of trust. It's just about bringing your presence to each other, and then just share a meal or some tea. It can be really simple as long as it feels sacred. And that's it, right? This is just a really simple way that we humans can move from the poverty of isolation to the synergy of kinship. So it's really about gathering together, sharing about your relationship with trust or question you're holding, listening, being present with each other, and then sharing some food or drink or just each other's company. That's it. That's the invitation.
That's a beautiful invitation. And I'm going to Vancouver to meet up with 50 other individuals in the community. So, well, maybe I'll see some of you there. This Saturday, July the 12th.
Oh my God, this Saturday.
Yes, I'm revving up to go, and there's all kinds of cool people coming along for that. So, maybe we'll see some of you there.
Is there a way, Matthew, for people to learn about it if they're in the area and they want to join you, or is it open? Is it open to the public?
Absolutely, yeah. If they go to, if you go on Google, I think that's the easiest way. Go Google Vancouver Gene Keys Gathering. It'll be the first one that pops up. I'm running out of.
Very good.
And if I could, there's just a couple of questions from people here, and I just think that there's some. Firstly, somebody was asking which gene key the owl is associated with. And so it's the 48th gene key. The 48th gene key moves from shadow of inadequacy to the gift of resourcefulness, which trusts in the timing and trusts that what I need shows up exactly when I need it, not when I think I need it. And the city of wisdom. And so that's the 48th gene key. And somebody else is asking, and this kind of in relation to that, are there different animals connected to different lines? And so you might be able to still do this on I think it's still linked on our Dreamwork bio here, is the Dreamwork profiler. So we've got a playful way of approaching this. And this is something I want to remind people of. It's a playful way of approaching this, because what Richard Rudd has taken the 6 lines. And so lines 1 and 2 are related to the fear keys. Lines 3 and 4 are related to the life keys, and lines 5 and 6 are related to the vision keys. And so that is one way that we have worked with it. And it's the playful way that we have explored it to this day. I could surely look at those line numbers and see which of the Dreamwork animals that they are also related to, but I like this way of playing. And one of the things that this does is it invites a deeper sense of trust as well, because oftentimes people will get a creature, like me and Elijah have a joke about this, Elijah Parker, because he gets, his is the clam, and it's the clam of disappointment. So his purpose gene is like, I'm the clam of disappointment, and for me, it's the grub. I got the grub, so I'm like the grub of mystery. Like those little things that you find in your garbage. That's mine. But for both of us, it's been this invitation into really, can I just trust that? Like, because that's one I would look over. I would easily look over. So thank you, Gmark Profiler, for bringing me face to face with the grub. And it's about a lot of what we're talking about here today. It is the fear of mystery is the grub. And so what people have found is even if they don't resonate with that creature, this is like this is the magic and the unpredictable nature of this. Sometimes we find that people can take this on really rigidly and seriously, and the dream arc isn't for that. I mean, it brings up serious, it brings up deep, the wounds, but there's also a playfulness to it, and it's that playfulness and lightness with it that allows us to experience the unexpected with it. So we end up going a very, sort of like interesting path. And it's not a longer path than say if you'd gone through looking at line numbers and jinkies and that kind of thing. But it can be a very surprise and unexpected path, and that the breakthroughs can be really interesting. And it's about paying attention. It's about paying attention. So one of the things when people say, "Oh, which gene key is that connected to?" they'll go and look into the book on the gene keys, which is great. But what happens if you commune with that? If you don't have the Dreamwork course right now, what happens if you just consider that creature? So the owl, what are some of the qualities that you heard today that you either resonated with, or you're like, I aspire to that in my own life? Because that's another way of approaching it. If you've got the written material, then you've got that to look and be open and receptive to it. That's another place where it's trust. It's like, can I trust this guidance here? Like I learned something else about the owl over there from that teacher. So I've got this really set way that person taught me about the owl. But it's like, what if in this moment there's just something in there? And then if you discover that isn't it, then you can move on, right? But what if you this is about, again, about giving trust. If we want to be trusted, if we want to receive trust, what in giving we receive. So giving trust. And it's always blown me away, the dream arc, in that way. And so that would be my encouragement to you when people hear, hey, it's related to this gene key. Oh, okay, I'm going to go read that gene key. There could be something in there. But what happens if you communicate with the creature that's sitting right in front of you? Because what about its qualities? What about, if it's deer at your front porch? Oh, what's that telling me about the softness? What's that about my connection to the earth? What's that about gentleness and patience? And oh, look how still it goes when it's trying to hide and make me think it's not there. Those are the kinds of things that we can work with. So I just wanted to share that. And then somebody just shared at the very end here. They said, my 4762 1858 SPP 46 8-year-old has no desire to read. She's all about the animals and symbols, right? And so it is a language. We love the language of numbers in the gene keys. So most of us in the gene keys can read 46, 72. Oh, yeah, 1858. Okay, I totally get that. Yeah. But the young kids, they're like, I got a bat. I got a snake here.
Exactly.
So yeah, thank you.
Hey, Matthew, could I share something before you go? You're going to something practical now? Are you going to say something?
Yeah. Nope. No, you can go ahead, and then I'll just share quickly before we close off.
Okay, I might have actually just forgotten what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I was going to say this thing about giving trust. It's like, how can we give our trust generously without giving our power away? Right? Like I think that's like a really nice little personal contemplative mantra. And the power that Matthew's talking about too is the power of direct experience and the power of our own intuitive connection. So we want to keep that alive while also offering our trust so that we can learn from what's coming from the outside as well, whether that's the Dreamwork codex or the Gene Keys profile. And then the last thing I wanted to say, I really like the way you kind of compare like a Gene Keys path where you're following a sequence and you have certain numbers to look at versus the Dreamwork path. And one might look like it's more direct and easy and maybe quicker, but no, they're just different ways of navigating life. And then I had this flash on a Ouija board, where there's a group of people sitting around, and their hands are all on it, and it's not one person saying, oh, these are the letters that I'm spelling out, right? It's like it's a group that's like going from this letter to this letter to this letter, and then a word appears and meaning appears, and that's how we see the dream arc. It's like a Ouija board that's held by the cosmic life web, and you got a buffalo here and an elephant here, and, this experience and this dream and this interaction, and everybody's got their hands on this board, and the story is unfolding for us. And I don't know, I just wanted to offer that visual because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. It is. Yeah, it is that, and there's no competition between the creatures. There's no one's needing to dominate the space. It's like, what are they pointing you to together? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that as a visual.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that from now on. Thanks for dropping that. That's for sure. And that's the creativity. That's the creativity of the Dream Arc. We've been working this for 2 years. Or 2 years. It's been out in the world for that long. Sorry, 3 years. It's been out in the world, and it's still, we get these insights and revelations about how it wants to, how it wants to be understood, right? As we're coming into deeper relationship. So, yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. So should we just you've got your questions, and we'll make sure the questions are in the reel as well, so that everybody can see the questions. And I think it just leaves us to be able to say, if you're not done with us yet today, there is another video. We had to, tricksters be tricksters meant that our video that we put on YouTube the other day, which is called Whole Brain Thinking, the hole that logic cannot fill. It's another hour-and-a-half transmission from Rosy and I about whole brain thinking. We put it out live on Monday. We premiered it, but there was a glitch in the audio. Still don't know exactly what happened there, but it's going to be aired today because we wanted to air it sooner rather than later. So it means we had no intention of doing these both on the same day, but tricksters be tricksters. That's what you get. And so 7 p.m. UTC, that video will go live on our YouTube channel, which is just simply the Dream Arc on YouTube. You can find it there. And I'm sure, actually now, well, I'm going to trust that because we did this one first, that maybe something in that will make more sense than if we'd seen it the other way around.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm going to just trust that for now.
Just right along with you. And also, I mean, it's live premiering today, but it'll just be up there. So
it's going to be up there.
Yeah.
You can watch it in divine timing. Trust the timing of when you do. Yeah. Trust when you are called to it. And then the other thing, we've got an interview coming out. It'll be coming out on Saturday morning, and it will be, or Saturday, at least morning my time. It'll be on Saturday, and it's an interview. Rosy and I had an interview, sat down for an interview a couple of weeks ago with Shannon Lee, daughter of Bruce Lee. And she shared a lot about her new book that she's written called The Breath of the Dragon. She also shared about her story of sort of stepping out of the shadows of her father and really claiming her own beingness in these last few years, and especially in this year of the snake. And she was sharing how she was shedding the skin. So we've got that interview coming up on Saturday, and that's a nice, rich, ripe interview. And if anybody's in the creative process right now, writing, painting, whatever you might be doing, I'm sure there's some valuable insights in there from her, and indirectly from Bruce Lee as well, because she is the wisdom bearer for that family tradition in the way of the dragon. So those are the only things that I wanted to mention. I think practical wise, I think that's enough though, isn't it? So gives people a lot already. That's still 3 hours of viewing time ahead of them if they decide to.
Remember, these are my last ones. I mean, I'm a guest, right? So that's why we're pumping it out.
Yeah, we're getting them out. And it's been a real joy doing these with Rosy. And part of my trust is trusting in the leaping moving forward, knowing that Rosy will come back and do more of these Instagram lives, and that I'll be here to host Instagram lives continuing on, and that there will be others who come on and support as well, so that you can hear from the full fractal of the Dream Arc. The village, you can hear from the village. But I'm looking forward to having Rosy here more often than she thinks. So I think that's it for today. Thank you, Rosy. We'll see you in an hour and a bit, I guess, in the other video.
Oh, and
I'm not
thank
even
you everyone for coming.
45 minutes.
For joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Enjoy your intermission before the next presentation. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye, Rosy.
Bye, Matthew.